So you were at a hockey game last night or something? Tell me more.
I did Ottawa, Tampa last night, and both these teams fighting for position, and good game. Vasilevsky made some big saves. He made 5 saves in a 23-second kind of flurry. That was the difference in the game. Ottawa pressed. Ottawa had played in Nashville the night before, which is a weird back-to-back for them. They got to come time zone wise and everything. And but that being said, they play again tomorrow, which is a weird, like a back-to-back in the same city. So they go right back at it. I look at Tampa. Tampa's got a few games in hand kind of on people in the East, but they know that their playoff hopes they've got 4 or 5 games in a row against the Atlantic. So it was good, the timing of it, because I was able to watch the Calgary Leaf game kind of right into it. And I was disappointed. You know what? You guys can talk to it more, but I thought the schedule caught up to Calgary. I didn't think they had a lot of jam, and I thought there were some mental mistakes. I didn't love Wolf's game. I have a tough time. I know those were 2-on-1s and stuff, but that's the goalie's got to take the shot, right? Like, and you get beat twice on clean shots. And I know they're partial breakaways or whatever. And, Nylander is a goal scorer. McMahon's had a good season, but you need some saves there. You need some saves. And I just, I didn't love his game. I thought, Rasmus Anderson had a couple bad turnovers, and, Uyghur, like they didn't have it for me. I'm watching all these Flames games. I don't know how you guys felt. I just didn't think they had that extra jam and that extra juice against a team, that you need that against.
It was a rare bad home game for Wolf. It's his 19th home game he started last night. That's his 5th loss. Like, he's been unreal. So it was a little like, oh,
yeah,
what's happening here?
But he has lost 3 of his last 4. It's 3 straight on home ice. It could be catching up to him too, right? He's had that workload in other leagues and that, but this is kind of a different animal, Noodles. So I would think that's fair.
It is. I just, it's sometimes you think about it too from his standpoint. It's a big platform game because a lot of people are watching, right? And
Eastern media.
If he stands on his head, all of a sudden, everyone's out east is going, Wolf for rookie of the year. They shut down the Leafs, all of that type of stuff. I felt it was it's a lot of times when you play Toronto, you have a platform to get a lot of eyes on you just because of the amount of people that watch those games. But it was a rare off game. You're right. I'm not too upset about it. It's just more about I would have liked to see some of their key players really push through. And, Huberdeau jams up Barry. I didn't love Barry, like, pinching down on
He's
that.
no good. They need a defenseman, balls out. Like, we were just talking.
It was a thin blue line before that injury.
Yeah, it just, there's a couple plays there where you're just like, all right, like and I like Tyson Barrie, and we know what he is as a player, but there were some thin moves there from him last night. You're going, like, just
he got walked by Reeves.
Yeah, walked by Reeves. That's where where the cherry on top was.
That'd be one of those things where today Huska just calls him into the office. He's like,
yeah,
and Barry just looked back and be like,
yeah. You just point to that clip and go, Ryan Reeves, nice player, 1,000 games, all that, but that's not his forte. And you're picking flowers on that one. So
he went months without playing, Noodles. Like he I think it was like November 12. He didn't get in until like late Jan. So
it's not a Barry problem. We're not hanging this on Tyson Barrie, but it was not a great night. I'll say this it's not even in Wolf's defense, but that first goal by Willie Nylander, where Nyes makes the backhand pass and he hits it. We've seen Wolf come to his right and make that stop a lot of times, but most guys have it about maybe 2 feet off the ice, right in the breadbasket. Great play for him to get over, but still it's in the mail slot in the top corner. This is Nylander now, hell of a shooter. I mean, and you maybe want to save on that second one as well, but you almost give him the benefit of the doubt because how well he shoots it. We talked about it yesterday going into the game. We don't need to do it again. He's a great Leaf. The outside noise doesn't bother him. It doesn't get him all bogged down in his confidence. He's just a hell of a hockey player that just seems to march to his own beat.
Yeah, and it's fine to be like that. You just can't have too many of them. That's the difference. Like, because he's a guy that, I always find that he plays on the perimeter. Like, I find that if you watch him during a game, he doesn't go anywhere where, there could be a little trouble. It kind of gets around it. He's really good at sneaking up on people, lifting their stick and going the other way. We saw him do it to Uyghur. Like, he's an opportunist. He blows the zone. Craig Berube has pointed that out a few times. Like, he's a guy that, I think early on, the Maple Leafs struggles where a lot of these guys were trying to conform to, hey, north-south game, chip and chase. I could see Marner on the ice thinking. He'd go to circle back inside the offensive zone blue line, and then he would chip it instead of trying to make a play. Where Nylander was like, the hell with that. I'm just playing my way and that's it. And you can have that, but you can't have everybody like that. There's a lot of people that have to conform to playing within a style, and then you give a longer leash to somebody who can make you pay. And Nylander's been that guy. He blows the zone. I think he has the most breakaways in the league this year, but he literally, it's because every time he's on the ice, he wants to stretch the play. So he's at the far blue line, and he's good at his timing's really good. Like, he's a very good player, but I guess where I throw in the word but, the only thing is when the game tightens up in the playoffs, and people say his production and all that, but there's a lot of times where that area that you don't want to go to in the regular season on a Tuesday night, you got to get there in the playoffs. So that's where things that you shrink. And I've always said, you got to lean on guys like that to see if they'll fight through. And if they fight through, good on them. They might win, push through and win to a round or two. If they don't, then, see what happens. They go the other way.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked with these types of players because here in Calgary, it just feels like it's been so long since there's been any high level of skill. It's like, well, we'll let somebody else be the 200-foot player. If you can shoot the puck and score like that, we'll find some other guys that can be 200s. Last night, interesting performances because we looked at the huge slates. So Carolina's in Winnipeg and Florida versus the Capitals. And the Capitals doubled up the Panthers, and the Jets, without Hellebuck, shut out the Hurricanes. Not that it's a big power shift and it's just one night, but those are some heavyweight tilts that were decidedly won by the Caps and the Jets.
So I would say, two things. Winnipeg, I feel like there's some juggernauts out west, and I think there's some really good teams out east. And I don't know if Washington gets enough love for being, we'll call it the juggernaut type of team. They just win every night, it seems like. And they've got, I did them live 2 weeks ago. In the last couple of weeks, I've seen them twice live, and then we'll watch them a bunch. There's just no weakness on that team. They got good goaltending, good D, 4 lines that can play. They're big, they're mean. They don't have to beat you up, but it doesn't hurt that you've got a guy like Duhaime who can fight. You've got Tom Wilson. Like, they've got really good depth there. Watching, I kept my eye on that game because I thought that was unique. There was tied there for a while. So, you're at 2-2 and thinking, okay, there's a 3-point game because you're watching the standings constantly. But it was some flex for some top tier teams. And I think in the end, I still think Florida will be, I think they just kind of cruise into games and go, yeah, we can do what we want here type of thing. We won last year. We know how to do it. But I look at Winnipeg and I think that team is just, I've been waiting for the drop off. I told you guys before that, they get to January and February, they got everybody believing, including me. Where's the drop off? Where's their 2 week where they hit the ditch? Haven't seen it this year. So some heavyweight tilts that, tilted in the way of the teams that have been quite consistent all season long. And that's Washington and Winnipeg.
Yeah, and those aren't the teams at the top of the futures board. It's Edmonton, it's Toronto, they are kind of under the radar for conference leaders, which feels weird, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Edmonton just kind of, I don't know. They did it again last night. McDavid just said, okay, they pissed away. I think they were up 2-1, and then, or no, it was 1-0 going to the third. Yeah, and then they, 2-1, they're down. They tied to make 2-2. And then McDavid just goes, I'm going to be a video game here in overtime just for fun and put Connor Brown on the board. It's just stuff like that. Like Edmonton, I think is a pretty, solid bet of a really good team. I look at all, the Leafs are a good team. You saw that last night. They're a pretty good team. I still think there's holes in their lineup farther down their roster. Guys like you want more from Domi. I don't know if you noticed him last night much, like guys like that.
Nice.
Like I think that every team that we talk about top tier has a few warts, has a few things on their wish list. We'll see if they get them at the deadline or not. I mean, it seems like our pets' heads are falling off with all these trades and all of that. And, the teams that need it, they either got to be proactive here, because I feel like the trade deadline is going to come around and there's just going to be bit pieces trading here and there, because all of the big stuff has been taken. Yeah. So it'd be interesting to see what, between now and the trade deadline, what team believes they're going to fall off, what teams believes they need a little bit of help to push over, and see where we're at. But, Connie did his part, made the big trade the other day. And, I like the players. I don't think he gave up much either. That Kuzmenko wasn't going to do anything here. So.
Yeah, and it's not going to under Torts either. Like, that's not a fit. Sorry. See you at SK in St. Petersburg next year.
I know. Like that one's a weird one. And you could tell, I don't know if Morgan Frost is not a Torts guy. You saw Frost do the between the legs play last night in the offensive zone. And, he's a tricky guy. Like, he's got good hands, good vision. I think he's an average skater, but I think he can get there, but he's got skill. And Farabee, I think Farabee's a really, dependable guy who can score and play two ways. Frost is the X factor for me, because he does have some flash and dash, and, he needs to fit into a situation where maybe he can work with somebody. And I don't think in Philly that was going to work. It just, you got to be a little bit more structured for Torts.
Our pits' heads are falling off.
That's right. I wanted to ask you, Ron, just before we get away from the Washington or the Jets, and I'm assuming you've watched some of Logan Thompson, Calgary kid, plays in the Western League for McCrimmon and Brandon. McCrimmon goes to Vegas, like, well, I'll bring this guy in. He's undrafted. There's not a whole lot of. They move away from Fleury. They've got who's the big guy from Buffalo? What was the
snake breeder?
Robin Leonard.
Right? Oh, Robin Leonard.
And he can't stay healthy. Well, they're going to go with Aiden Hill and Logan Thompson. And then even then, it was kind of Aiden Hill who took over. I don't know what we're watching right now. He's got the new deal, and it's a hell of a value deal if he plays like this. He's third in 2.18 goals against, 923 save percentage. His record is 24-2-4.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look, you talk about not slowing down. He just looks steady. This can happen. As Ryan says, goalies are voodoo. And he's got a little dance that he does. I won't make him do it right now, but it's kind of hard to figure out. This might be the latest voodoo trick that we're seeing, where a guy kind of comes out of obscurity. One of the better goalies, and he's with Ottinger and Hellebuck atop all of the goaltending metrics.
I was talking to a manager yesterday that they want to suggest different rules for goaltenders. And I was like, okay, what do you mean? And it's funny because he was saying, you've got some of these goalies now that have gotten really good at 26, 27, 28 and on. So what's the use of drafting them at 18 when all you're doing is developing them for somebody else? Because, and I remember, I don't know if you guys remember the goalie coach and the goalie, Jim Corsi. So Jim Corsi years ago.
Buffalo.
Yeah. So Jim Corsi, I love talking to. He's just a very awesome guy. And I remember talking to him about it because he was Buffalo and then he'd gone to St. Louis as the goalie coach. And he said that the biggest challenge when you're drafting, let's say a kid at 18 or 19, he said you have 3 contract cycles to get through by the time they maybe have a chance to be an NHL goalie at 25 years old. How many teams have the patience to wait 7 years for a guy to grow up mentally and physically? Now, there are outliers. Dustin Wolf's an outlier. But Dustin Wolf has a ceiling that he potentially could be a star number 1 goaltender in the league. And you can see, the progression in front of you. But a lot of times, goaltenders, it takes them a while to get it between the ears. Like to be able to handle the rigor of the 60 minutes, the league, the consistency, everything. So you go back to Jonathan Quick, Tim Thomas, all of these guys getting good mid to late 20s. And then having 10-year careers after that because they they still get it in their 34, 35. Marc-Andre Fleury wins a Vezina at 36. Pekka Rinne wins a Vezina at 35. Darcy Kemper, guys like that win cups in their 30s. So to me, there is something, I don't want to say the system's broken, but the way we look at goaltenders, coming back to Logan Thompson undrafted, just kind of shows up. I believe he was playing at Brock University. You've got, and here's a guy all of a sudden that probably should be in the Four Nations face-off.
Absolutely.
And, is going to get Vezina votes. And how did you slip through the fingers of 32 teams and scouts and everything?
Even Vegas, who found you, let you go, right?
Well, exactly, because they had to make a decision.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting. I don't know what the rule change would be, but it would be allow your players to develop from a goaltender standpoint where you don't have to expose them on waivers. You don't have to. Now, I don't know if the goalies would buy that, because what goalie is going to put up their hand and say, I want to spend 7 years with this organization and get a little, no sniff or anything. And you're going to hit or miss. It's just a very unique situation, but we are seeing goaltenders mature and get second and third opportunities, but it's always with the next organization. And I think that's where you see, and I talk to a lot of goaltender coaches and goaltender development coaches and stuff, where they're constantly looking at depth charts of other organizations and saying, who's the next Jordan Binnington? Because Binnington, he got called up there in that January. He was the 5th goalie on their depth chart in St. Louis. So, who can you find a Binnington that can be your starter for 7 or 8 years from somebody else, and it doesn't cost you anything? You haven't had to put money into draft developing, signing bonus, all of this type of stuff. It's like, hey, we're picking a 25-year-old that's been number 4 in a system, that's had Connor, like, let's just say if Winnipeg had a young goaltender and he's stuck behind Hellebuck for years, you're like, okay, this guy's in the coast, he's all over. So it's interesting because the goalie voodoo is real. You got to find guys who arrive, and it's the right situation too. Washington's a pretty damn good team. You put him, in San Jose when they were struggling, or you put him in Chicago, his numbers look different too, right?
Yeah, Wolf has not been a fast track. Like, it's going to be the 6th-year anniversary of his draft this summer. Like, what the Flames have done is very hard for teams to do, which is to be patient, to let a guy marinate, wait till he's over ready. And it can also strain the player-team relationship in some spots, because you're like, fuck, what more do I have to do to get a call up here? But you're right. It's like, if you could slow that service clock or make it a bigger number until they're waiver eligible, that would make sense.
It's an interesting one too, though, because they were able to have patience with Wolf because they'd gone and gotten Markstrom, and he was highly paid. And the other part is you had faith because he was lighting up every level. Well, he's made World Juniors, and he's great in the dub, but he's great in the A. So it's not like he didn't give you the opportunity to lose faith. And the contract length for Markstrom was just right where it was, Wolf could see, okay, I will be the guy at this point. But yeah, you just look at some of the goalies who are in the top. Yeah, you've got Hellebuck and Ottinger, but then there's Bobrovsky and Markstrom and some others that, they're not with their original teams.
They're well-traveled, and you get well-traveled because at some point teams get fed up and they go, okay, we got to move on from this guy, or he wants too much money, he wants too much term. That's the biggest, I think, scary part nowadays for teams. Philip Grubauer's on waivers the other day. Seattle had to have him, and I get it, and I understood the premise, and he took the money. Good for him, because I believe it was 5.5 or 5 years at 5 that was on the table from Colorado. He took 5.8 times 6, so good for him. He took money. There was an extra 10 million there for you, whatever it was. I'm not doing the math right now, but they go and sign Joey Decord, and Decord's their guy now, and now Grubauer is being pushed out. You see it. I think that's the scariest thing for teams now, is signing a goaltender for 5 years at a big number and going, how many of those years are going to be good?
Okay, so we talked about it like a week ago. This summer, you're able to talk extension with Dustin Wolf. He's got 1 year left at low money. He will have arb rights next summer. He's just turning in what looks to be a stellar first year in the league. you could theoretically lock him up for 8 years and have him for the next 9 years. And that's kind of the identity you build from. It's not terribly different than when Mika arrived. Everything changed. How would you even begin to start putting a number on that contract? Because again, the voodoo thing, but also that he's dominated every level thing. And then also the cap's going up. Like, do you think that's something they should do? Or is it
also
like
he's got to want to do it?
Yeah.
He's got to want. Yeah, you're right. He's watching. And my biggest fear through all of this, not even, I'm just going to remove Dustin Wolf here, but I'll come back to it. You got a lot of agents now getting in these kids' ears going, you know what, that, you know, the cap's going up. You need this. There's percentage of cap and all of that. And sometimes guys just go, you know what, 7-year deal at $5 million. I'm putting $35 million in my jeans. Like, I'll take it. I came from nothing and I'll take that. And I've heard it's scary now. I've heard a few stories where agents are getting in these kids' ears and it's, you know, they're steering them in directions where it puts them in a bad spot. And then the contract either blows up or they end up getting a lot less than they could have gotten right up front. So, and I'm not saying this for Dustin Wolf. I don't even know what an 8-year deal would look like for him. If you went 8 times 5 and say, we're going to overpay you early on, but you're going to be underpaid by the time it's done. Like, and you could be underpaid 3 years in of a 5-year deal based on where the projection we believe he's going. And if Connie and the rebuild, the retool works and they're a top tier team 3-4 years from now. But I think it's how much security does he want? Does he want to bet on himself? Jerome McGinley, I think, ever only signed 3-year deals. Like
he had one big one, but yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like he always bet on himself every couple of years going, yeah, like I know what I am and I know what I can get. But there's only one Jerome McGinley. I think it depends on what Dustin Wolf would want or both sides. But if you believe that Dustin Wolf is your goalie of the now and the future, don't you think you could sit down and get something done from both sides that would make everybody kind of happy? I don't know what that number would look like.
Well, I don't think it's 5. It's got to be more than that. Like, I don't think you put him in the same box as Joey Decord or, you know, Blackwood. He's north of the $5 million class.
Play agent. Put your agent hat on, Noodles.
So who just got the bigger so it was somebody just got
Thompson.
Something with a 6. Oh, Thompson just got.
Thompson got 5.5. Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't come with the pedigree that Wolf does. Is quite a bit older. Wolf's having success earlier in his career. Like, it's got to be well north of that number and term.
So then, I would have a tough time. The reason being, I mean, yes, it's not my money. It's Connie's money, and it's Murray Edwards and all of that. But I mean, yes, if you felt that he was your guy, and you're just hands down, here's $7 million or whatever it's going to take to get this done for 8 years. We'll put $50 million in your pocket. You know, would you be looking at that? I think there would be times where people would be like, that's an overpay if he struggles, or, you know, and there'd be times would be like, this is a bargain because the cap's going up and, you know, $7 million is going to be a second line guy or a third line guy, but when the cap's $125 million a year. So, you know, that's where the economics come in. Maybe it's a bridge deal.
There'd be 2 reasons to do it from the Flames' point of view. Is one of them to keep them happy. The second one to get them on the cheap. That's why you're doing it.
Yeah, you sign these guys long-term because as time passes, they become great deals. And you'd have him locked up till he's 30. You're talking about like 31, like his entire prime.
The downside is you get Grubauer.
Yeah. But I don't think he's Grubauer.
I don't either. I'm not saying that he is, but I'm there.
Nobody thought Grubauer was Grubauer. That's the point. That's the voodoo thing. That's your risk, is the voodoo, right?
But I look at the skill of Grubauer, and I always felt he was average. There's nothing wrong with the word average, okay? I believe the skill of Wolf is not average.
Yeah.
He's another tier above. I don't know what the ceiling is.
I just don't know why. What's in it? If you're the agent for Wolf, it's guaranteed money.
Yeah.
And it's really, really, really good money. But is there something to be said about paying what he's due?
I think like that. This is a deal that we've seen similarities to. Like, if you remember the expansion draft with Vegas, they went and got Shea Theodore out of Anaheim because Anaheim was loaded on the back end with all those D-men. And they knew Shea Theodore was going to be special. And Shea Theodore knew he was going to be good. And he was walking into a spot where instead of a 5-6 behind a really good blue line, he was running power play. Vegas said, we're doing a long-term deal. And you come to us when you're ready for the long-term deal. We'll overpay for now, because they knew it was going to work. And if you're the agent, you're like, well, you might not be at market value the last 3 years, but Shea Theodore just got re-upped again at huge money, and it worked for both sides. And I just don't think, if you're an agent advising players, like Dustin Wolf didn't have a dad that played in the league like the Kachuk boys. Like Dustin Wolf's a very different upbringing.
Yeah.
How do you say no to $60 million if they float 7.5 a year times 8?
That's what I'm saying. Like you have to look at what he values, not what the agent says. This is what you're worth and all that. What him and his family or his inner circle value most. Because I knew as a player, I valued security. Because if I can get a 3-year deal, I'll take it, because that means at least the team is willing to pay me for 3 years. He's in a different boat. He's in a different bucket. But that being said, he might just go, I'd love to buy a house here in Calgary. I'd love to be here for 10 years. I want to be the backbone. And you could argue with where the Flames are right now, where there's lots of work to be done. But when you're a top tier team, like, okay, so Shesterkin just got paid. What did he get? 12 million? I don't even remember.
11 and a half.
Yeah, just shy.
11 and a half, whatever it was. Okay. Shesterkin's been up for the Hart. He's won a Vezina, all of that type of stuff. It took him a while to settle in. Let's say Wolf does that 4 years from now, right? Because it's still the team's growing, he's growing, and all of that. That's halfway through the deal. Like you're already, and you're going to be, you'll be underpaid for a couple years. Like to me, I just don't see a scenario where it's like Dustin Wolf is considered a top 3 goaltender on the planet in the next 2 years. He might be. I hope he proves me wrong. But there's a chance he can get to, a top 5, top whatever. I just believe has the ability to be that good. I guess what's the projection for him to be that top tier goalie? How many years from now could you guys see that he's a 55 game starter, top tier, money in the bank? That's if the projection keeps going. I think it's a couple years from now, minimum.
He's already that guy here. He's their most important player. It's wild. Like he is.
Okay. But I'm talking you're against your peers. Like your comparison.
That's what I was going to say. You still have to outplay Shesterkin and Hellebuck and all these other guys,
and all of those guys.
I would think he's sort of in that like 8 to 15 range, right? He's not with the Russian quartet nor the Ottinger, Demko, Hellebucks. Swayman's having a bit of an off year, but I think he's one of the guys that's in that class.
Yeah,
sometimes.
But I think after that group, that's where he'd slot in. And you look at the money that Ullmark and Swayman got. I don't think could justify that. So I keep arriving sort of between 7 and 8.
But you're right. Like I guess that's my point is if you believe he can be in that group, what year do you project that he's in that group? Is it a couple years in where as he gets more experience, continues to grow, the team is better? So you're projecting maybe that's year 3 or 4, and you would be in that group of the 8 to 12 million. Well, you're overpaying him for the first couple of years in that progression. So you're right. You could make it a case for something with 7 and go 7.5 or whatever and go, we're going to overpay you early on. You're going to be underpaid by the end. That's what we believe you're going to be. If you're fine with that, go ahead. I just, I keep coming back to certain players going, I'll just bet on myself. But, if you're the Flames and you believe he's the most important player, you got to find some happy medium to keep him happy to be the most important player for your organization.
He's played 49 games.
Yeah.
And I think we're all on the same page. I don't really have a lot of concern. I think he's a very good goalie.
I'll give you an example. I call these Ottawa games. They paid all of their core. They paid Shabbat. They paid Stützle. They paid Batherson. They paid Kachuk. They paid Sanderson. These guys are all making 8 or under.
Yeah.
The cap's going up, and they've got their core intact at $8 million a year. Tim Stützle makes $8.25 million for like 6 more years, 5 more years. Like it's like, and the cap's going to be at 110 in a couple of years. And like, to me, Ottawa went all in and said, this is our core. Yes, we might have to shift it if it doesn't work, but these are the guys we're going to pay the money to. We believe in them. It seemed like a gross overpay because they haven't done, still haven't made the playoffs.
They still haven't done shit. So it's good to say that they've got a core, but
but you're right. So when they missed the playoffs last year, people are going, yeah, you know what, you put $8 million in your jeans and you're watching from the sidelines. So, but the minute that they cross over and get into the playoffs and become a perennial, and this team takes another step, and Jake Sanderson, there's rumblings of him being, potential if Quinn Hughes is not available for the Four Nations. Jake Sanderson's been, bandied about as this kid's 22 years old.
Was it last night he walked the line and that wrister went in, or was that 2 nights ago?
2 nights ago in Nashville. He had 3 goals in 3 games. He's a special player. They got him at $8 million a year.
Yeah, and when he signed it was like, holy shit, he's played.
People were like, the guy had played, 71 games, I think it was. And they're like, yes. we got to. But you know what? It comes back to the philosophy of what you just said. And that's why I might be changing my mind on the fly here. But it's like, if you believe that's your guy, then get him locked up. That's it. Yeah. Like Jake Sanderson, they said to him, yeah, it might be an overpay early on, but we know what you're going to be. And we believe you're going to be. So, hey, here's $8 million a year. Josh Norris, here's 7.8. Brady Tkachuk, here's $8 million. Tim Stützle, you're the best out of all of them. Here's 8.25. So they did that. And they got Drake Batherson at 4.85. And he's a 60 to 70 point guy. Jeez. Like they made these commitments. Now, Ottawa's a different market than Calgary, but the one thing I will say, and I'm rambling, but I'm kind of fired up.
You're GMing.
No, but I felt the other day in that trade, Peltier being emotional, players, even Kuzmenkov going, geez, I wanted to stay and stuff. To me, it's a good thing. Like it means that people aren't running from Calgary. It's
you not that last year with Lindholm and Zadorov, and
right, like just people just dying to get out, and whatever. Somebody's wife doesn't like it there, or you name it. Like it's like this. These guys like what Connie's doing, like what the setup, how the organization has treated them with class. They like the coach. They like everything. To me, the Flames should take a lot of pride in that because they built something here and are building something here that people want to be a part of instead of going, yeah, they're on my no trade list. Yeah, I don't like what I'm seeing there or whatever. To me, having some emotion of those players wanting to stay and showing that, geez, I didn't want to be traded. I thought that was like, it was a real tell for me that Calgary's not in that, like, hey, that's a no fly zone, which is, I think that's really important for the organization.
I was on the Nasty Knuckles podcast this morning, and it's Riley Cote and the 25-year equipment guy for the Flyers. Knows Farabee really well. Said those two guys are jacked to come here. And you wonder, like, one's American. It's a very different market than Philly is. Yeah, there's the Torts thing, but he said those fellas are super excited, and that's important, right?
Morgan's a Canadian kid. His dad, Andy, was the announcer for the Leafs for 1,000 years. Andy's awesome, but it's nice. Like, I think with a guy like Morgan, it's a big platform for him to come home, probably easier. I know it's a longer flight, but, family can come and down. Calgary, people forget how beautiful Calgary is, right? If you haven't been to Calgary and seen the setup and seen the surroundings, and, I'm very close with John Abbott. Like, John loves it there. And John wasn't, I'd worked in Vancouver, but, I think that he's found a home there, loves it, him and his family and all that. And, he's takes a lot of pride in calling those games. Like, to me, there's, Calgary is a place that if you haven't spent time there, you should. And it's nice to see the players embrace that. And I felt bad. I know it was emotional. And you can even tell Connie in his interviews, Connie was like, yeah, it was tough to pull him and tough to tell him. I mean, that's the crappy part about this job. But Connie did a good job, and I thought they did well in that trade. 24 and 25-year-olds to slide into your system. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it can all be a little touchy-feely, and it's people in Calgary talking about Calgary, but like you say, it was not that long ago. It was people were shitting on Calgary and the whole thing, and now, well, here's a guy that didn't want to leave, and these two guys are excited to be here, and Hanlon and Conroy getting on the plane and to pick those two guys up, it's a little thing, but it's not. That's... stuff matters.
It's the details. It's the details that they flew all the way. Because I saw, I don't know, this BXA made a comment. It's like, why don't you just get a jet from Philly to bring them? But that's the details. The GM and the vice president of communications jumped on a plane to come and personally welcome you to their team and bring you back. Like yes, it might have cost Murray or the organization a few extra dollars, but that's a detail that goes a long way. Because when he tells his buddies, go, man, you should have seen the red carpet they laid out for me, man, that stuff means stuff, because guys talk all the time throughout the league. Rhett, how many friends do we have throughout the league, guys that you played with, the six degrees of separation? They all talk. Go like, yeah, private jet, PJ came and picked me up, and the GM came and picked me up. Sometimes, when we played, you're lucky to talk to the GM ever.
I was going to say, what was the olive branch they extended to you, Warner, when you got the trade? What was that? How did that work?
Well, Red, did you ever get anything? Remember when they ran me out of Calgary? I got traded to the Rangers.
Yeah.
Ben Sather shows up, and he's wearing like a robe. He was like, I showed up. He was wearing like a white robe and had a half-chewed cigar. I swear he didn't know who I was. I had to introduce. I was like, hey, I'm Jamie McClendon. Yeah. How you doing? Like there wasn't a private jet flying to Dallas to pick me.
Dallas? Damn it.
Yeah.
Rhett was in a sky suite at Cowboys. He didn't have to go anywhere.
I was at my brother's drunk. Yeah.
Noodles, I'll never forget it. It's like, oh, they made it. Okay, Rhett, all right. Yeah, see how this works out. It feels like a Daryl kind of deal. They're having the media availability, right? Geez, they just announced the trade. How the hell is this working out? Friggin' hillbilly Jim here's got his cowboy gear on. He's at the Stampede. He's half in the bag.
He's gonna fit in great.
This guy's gonna fit in just fine, I think.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's stuff like that. I mean, I love the stories, but it is a small detail that I thought was a real nice touch of class. With Peter and Connie going to do that. And, it was a quick turnaround for these guys too, right? They want to jump into a game, get going. Your adrenaline's rolling, your phone's blowing up. You just got to get to the game. But, they are going to settle in. It is a good trade. They did it the right way. I know, you take some flack for having to pull a guy during the game. That is unique. I think I've told you, Mike Camilleri is my son's hockey coach. So I was with Cammy the next morning, and Cammy doesn't kind of follow the league as closely. So I said, you see the trade? And he goes, no. I said they had to pull him during the game. He goes, oh, well, now I'm not the only guy who's been traded halfway through a game. And so he kind of told that story of how he got pulled during the game and off the bench and everything. He said it was a weird feeling, but he goes, ultimately that's business. You got to get the deal done, and you got to protect the asset too, right? Like God forbid a guy gets a slap shot off the foot or falls awkwardly and the deal blows up because you left him in the game. So it happens.
Well, that was the other deal when Jokinen and Prost went to the Rangers. That was the same thing. That deal was done and those guys were in the game. And whatever it was, Kodalik and whatever the hell came back, Higgins, I think it was like, well, yeah, if any of those guys get hurt, that deal goes sideways, which maybe would have been a good thing. I'm not sure. Anyway.
Yeah. With that return, you probably would have wanted those guys to get a shot off the knee or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Totally, for sure.
So just for perspective, off day in Tampa. So 15 years ago, Rhett and Noodles have an off day in Tampa versus 2025, Rhett and Noodles off day in Tampa. What would the similarities or differences be? What would you be doing today, Retro, in Tampa, say early 30s, late 20s?
I'd be doing the same thing I did when I played. I mean,
all right.
You're going to be outside. You're going to be at a restaurant. You're going to have a couple drinks. You're going to have some stories. Yeah.
Couple drinks or
1,000.
Whale's rib?
Yeah, you go to a nice steakhouse. There's that I'm not a big strip club guy, but there's that Mons Venus or whatever. There's like that type of stuff.
That's dirty.
Yeah, you roll by there.
Don't bring a black light there.
But
isn't the Pancake House? Is it the Waffle House there by the?
Right by there. There's a Waffle House. Yeah.
On the way
I
home.
heard. Anyways, that's. I had my rookie dinner when I was with the Islanders in Tampa, and this was like 1993 or 4. Yeah,
they came in '93, so.
Yeah, so 90, I think it was 94. I think I had my rookie dinner. It was me, Zygmunt Palffy, and Brett Lindros.
Wow.
Yeah, and they collected $1,500 from me and from Ziggy, and Brett Lindros had to pay a little bit more because he got a big contract. And they had it at a place I think called Chateau Madrid, where like we each got like I got like a almost like an urn from there. It was really weird. This I don't know, some sort of weird bottle. And we had a nice dinner, drinks, and then we ended up going to the strip club for a bit. And I was so nervous because I didn't view myself as an everyday NHLer. So $1,500 was that hurt my heart. Like I was like, what is going on here?
How could we spend that kind of money?
Yeah, I was so upset. And, I ended up having a good time, but that's all I remember about, times in Tampa. I never went out that much here in this city because it always felt like you were just moving on. It was like a back-to-back or something like that. So it was night before the game and out type of thing. So we didn't spend a lot of time here.
Yeah, Ziggy Palffy was going to hang around for a while.
Great hair.
Out of the three, Brett Lindros was the guy with the shortest cup of coffee out of you three. So there you go. He was a high first rounder.
Conkeys.
Well, remember Donnie Maloney said we got the better Lindros? That was his quote.
Yeah.
Oof. I mean, I love Brett. And you know what? Who knows what his ceiling would have been had he not had the concussion issues? Because he did have, he had concussion issues. And I do believe to this day he still does. Like him and Eric are very, very, into concussion prevention and all of that. I really like their family. I know they got a hard rap early on, but when you think about it, Eric Lindros changed the landscape so much for the NHL for on and off the ice. You think about it. Remember the carts, like the hockey carts. He came into the league and he was like, I'm getting a piece of that. You guys aren't. Like all of us got paid for hockey carts. That was like the Eric Lindros 91. Like I got included in all of those sets because I was drafted in 91 and I was the second goalie chosen. Eric Lindros changed the dynamic out of all of that. He made $3 million, hadn't played an NHL game. So Gretzky goes, hold on a second here. It's what I make. So I got to make more. Like he changed a lot of things. And it wasn't popular back then, but man,
we got to let you go. We've been talking to you for like a crazy long time here, but I was just thinking, because just remember when he came in, and the only highlights you see of Lindros now are him getting leveled by Scott Stevens or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But God, like he was unstoppable when he won the Hart with the Flyers, and he was unreal. And I was just thinking, what if you had a guy who was 6'4", 230, chiseled out of stone in today's game where you'd barely get hit anymore? Would he still be would he be even a bigger prospect, a bigger deal now, given his tools and size in this game? Or has it gotten faster, or has it changed? Would he not be?
I think he would be able to keep up. The biggest thing is that he scored. I can't find the video, and I don't want to find the video, but I talked to him about it with Joe. He scored a one-handed slap shot on me as he was holding somebody off. And it was a right-handed shot, and he just took a slap shot with one hand and roofed it on me. And I think Richie Pilon was on his back. Like it was something like a lunatic on his back, like not a tiny person. It was like Rich Pilon who would kill you. Like that type of stuff on his back. And Eric took a slap shot with one hand and roofed it on me. Like there was a time there where he was the most dominant player in the NHL. And that was in the league with Gretzky and Lemieux in it.
And and it was so different because you were scared of him.
Exactly.
Like Gretzky, Lemieux, Messier had a little bit of fear. You had a little bit of fear with Mess, but those other guys, you were like, I don't know how I'm going to handle them, but you didn't have fear. With Lindros, it was like
they put you through the boards and skate over top of you.
Happy to do it. Yeah, like that might be the intention. Actually, I'm not going to score. I'm going to dump it in your corner, and you're going to be crushed. I'm going to crumple you. I'm ending your game.
Yeah, there was a time where what was it? What was the name of that line there with Renberg?
Legion of Doom.
The Legion of Doom. They were big, and they all had they fit onto that line perfectly. Yeah, big scary stuff. That was right in my wheelhouse. I'm with the Islanders. We're playing the Flyers, and Hexy was my starter. I'll never forget. We're in Philadelphia. Hexy starting, and he liked to skate over top of the dot in warm-up right at the center ice. And Dave Brown, his best friend, knew that, so he went and stood on the dot. So Hexy slashed him. And so we had almost a brawl in warm-up because Hexy and Brownie got into it. They're best friends, but not on the ice. Like they were feared enemies. And all I remember is standing in like this scrum. And I'm like, these Flyers look like they're lunatics. They're all these monsters. And I'm just standing in there. And a puck goes whizzing by my face. Hexie had shot a puck at Dave Brown. I'm like, this guy has lost his mind. And that was like, Islanders, Flyers.
That was Tuesday night.
That was a Tuesday night. Exactly. Crazy stuff.
All right, buddy. Appreciate you. Love you. Enjoy the game tomorrow. Enjoy your day in Tampa.
Good hour.
All right. Sounds good, guys.
Hey, guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to check out more of our content right here on the Flames Nation YouTube page. We had a bunch of great long-form interviews. You can check out some videos we've done as well outside of the studio. And, of course, if you want more writing or merchandise stuff, flamesnation.ca or nationgear.ca. Appreciate you watching.